Hello and welcome to GameGuru Classic and GameGuru Max broadcast number 106. And before we get into the meat of this broadcast, I just want to do a sound check to make sure that everyone can hear me loud and proud. We hear you, says Monkey Frog Studios. Thank you very much for that. Everyone anticipates that question now. God, I'm getting predictable. Okay, let's get stuck in. As always, the format's pretty simple. First part is I get to demonstrate some stuff, and then in the second part we have a Q&A where you can ask as many questions as you can cram into the live chat for those lucky enough to join us live. And we answer as many of those questions as possible. Now you can ask your questions right away, just stick a question mark at the end. We have team members floating around. They can answer them immediately, they will. The ones that cannot be answered, because maybe something only Lee knows, then those questions will be repeated by the moderators and I'll be able to answer them on their behalf just for you. So that's how it's going to play. And without further ado, the demo section is going to be split again. The first part of the first part is GameGuru Classic, because from here on in, we're going to cover both Classic and Max. This started at the last broadcast, and the reason is we've seen that it's very important that there is a great migration path from GameGuru Classic, because it's a large community who wants to get to GameGuru Max, but there are still obstacles. And so we're going to basically start documenting that journey, figuring out what's left to do, how to make that process, that pipeline, as smooth as possible. So I think GameGuru Classic has very much a space in our broadcast at this time, which is why it's being featured. But one of the things that came up, and I was quite surprised by, but then when I went looking around for it, I thought, yeah, it's a very valid thing. We did a comparison chart between GameGuru Classic and GameGuru Max. And just to show how difficult it is to find that chart, when I kept digging around in it, because I wanted to show you in this broadcast, I couldn't find it. It took me ages to find it. Eventually I had to go back into my own source files, a really old email, to try and find this chart. And just for those who haven't seen, and for those who are coming from GameGuru Classic land and haven't seen it either, it's this. You may have seen it in various guises, but this is the one that I want to talk about very briefly. It was just an exercise just to see how GameGuru Max trumps Classic in certain areas. Remember, we have been working on Max development for quite a while, and so we had the opportunity to add lots of things during that time. So I'm not going to go through this list exhaustively. I'm just going to rhyme off the things that Max definitely does that Classic doesn't, starting with the terrain generator, which is procedurally based. And included in that is the idea of an infinite terrain, so you can go in one direction forever and ever. The next thing is Storyboard Editor. That was off requested, so now it's not just a case of designing one level at a time. GameGuru Classic was often accused of just being a glorified level editor. Now with the Storyboard Editor and the Menu Editor, you get more control over multiple screens, multiple levels, and all of that. Not through some clever scripting and intricate knowledge of art and folders. It's actually a WYSIWYG editor. You drag things around, you change fonts, you change colours, and it's all available as an editor. So that's actually been implemented for GameGuru Max. An advanced object library, you kind of know more about that maybe when you check out the free demo of GameGuru Max, which is available on Steam. Grouping objects and saving them. Tree instancing, so we can have thousands and thousands of trees. A visual logic system, so you don't necessarily need to script. Full screen filters and post-processing effects, those have been augmented significantly because we replaced the entire graphics engine. Proper nav mesh support, so now you can create what a nav mesh is. It basically describes where characters and objects can and can't move, and it defines a path from A to B along that, and that's just like a flat area. You can actually put nav meshes on top of buildings, up branches of trees. Nav mesh is very cool. Go check it out if you don't know what nav mesh is, but GameGuru Max has full support for it. And a few other little bits and pieces, the environmental effects. Yes, Classic had an importer, but Max has a much better one. And one thing I quite like about Max is we integrated video tutorials right into the editor. So the modern way now is to go on YouTube and watch a couple of tutorials on how to do a thing. we've skipped that process, so now you don't even have to leave the software to go and watch some video tutorials, because we've put them straight in the software. And we've made it context-based as well, so wherever area you are within the software, the video is right there next to you. All you do is press the play button, and you just learn about the section that you found your way into. So that this little section is really just for the benefit of Classic users who don't necessarily know how much we've crammed into GameGuru Max, and maybe start that process of thinking, you know what, one day I will go to GameGuru Max, but right now I'm finishing my game project in Classic. But at least you know that we are working to make sure that pipeline is smooth, so when you actually go from Classic to Max, then you can take your game project with you, and you get all these extra lovely tools and toys to play with when you get there. Now, there was another question, can't remember, I think it was posted as a Steam comment, which was, when's the next update for GameGuru Classic? Well, we did one in June. There was a June Fixes update, but this question was after that. So if you don't know about the June update, just activate Steam Auto Updates and you'll get your June update. But I think the question was trying to ask, well, when's the next one? And so I'm just going to take you to this page. This is our GitHub channel, and it's the issues board, and I filtered it for GameGuru Classic. And as you can see, these are all of the issues outstanding, and some of them have already been fixed. We're just waiting for confirmation, and some are still building information on trying to reproduce that issue before we can actually apply a fix, and then some out-and-out proper reproducible bugs that are on our list to be done. So as you can see at the top of the list, I mentioned this in the last broadcast, we are going to do another update, and you won't have to wait until the next quarter to get that update. Reason is, well, in the background we added 64-bit support to GameGuru Classic. It's currently only available in the repo, and even so it still has a few issues and bugs in it, so it's not one we'd recommend you go out, compile and run now. But we are planning another update. It's probably going to go out in August, but this August update will include full 64-bit support for GameGuru Classic's main binary. Amongst many of the other benefits, one of the big ones is it removes the system memory cap. So if you've had a problem where you've just got enough system memory and your large level game crashes, in the 64-bit version it won't. It'll be able to eat lots and lots of memory without running out of that virtual limit that you got with the 32-bit binary. So look out for that, but the reason I'm showing you this screen is there'll be other things included in the update. It just won't be an update with one thing. It'll be a few updates all crammed together, tested, and then we'll release that on Steam as part of the Steam Auto Update system. And whilst also I'm on this page, if anyone recognises a bug they've posted and it says fixed but needs confirmation, if you could just try and reproduce with the latest beta that's currently on the Steam build, and let us know that it is indeed fixed, and we can close these down, declutter the issues board, and just have what's left, which is actual reproducible bugs. Makes our job a little bit easier, cramming through all of the bugs, getting them fixed and getting them tested and in a future update. So that's what I wanted to talk about briefly on Classic. Say briefly, it turned out for quite a while, but I thought it was important just to show you the philosophy of why we're including GameGuru Classic in broadcasts moving forward for the time being. And without further ado, where are we migrating to? Well, we're migrating to GameGuru Max. Okay, welcome GameGuru Max users. So what do I want to demonstrate today? Well, not so much a demonstration, although I am going to cram in a little bit. What I really want to talk about is we're going to release another competition. Hooray! This one's going to be a little easier. The last one was pretty fiendish. We was asking you to use this advanced feature for importing real-world hype maps, and then on top of that creating a whole gameplay out of it, and then going head-to-head with people who are really good at making games. And we had some great entries, but we didn't have a lot of entries. So this competition, it's opening up a bit wider, and it's super, super simple. All we're going to ask you to do is create a screenshot. A really nice looking wow factor screenshot. So only one screenshot per entry, so you've got to pick your best possible screenshot. And the theme, because I thought I would have a go, I can't enter the competition of course, but I thought I'd create something to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. The theme is light and shadow, right? So you can probably guess what the theme's about. I want everyone to use lights to cast shadows to create a scene that creates drama and mood and something visceral and emotional and creates, at the end of the day, a really awesome looking shot, right? Easier than making a whole game. This is just stage something. It's one scene, it's one camera perspective, as many lights as you want, as many shadows as you want. And we get to pick the best one. Super easy to judge this one. We're just going to go through all the submissions and we're going to find out what the best looking ones are. And then we're going to award prizes. The competition is going to be around just under 2 weeks long. So the final entries will come in on the 10th of August. And we'll judge shortly after that. So if you are interested in just playing with lights and all of the objects, now just to make it fair, because there's some really top artists in our community, you can only use out of the box from GameGuru Max. That gives everybody a chance. No one's creating their own models and bringing them in to sort of wow you. And so the skill here isn't necessarily crafting models and textures and stuff. It's about how you use light, how you use the shadows, how you set the ambience and the lighting and all that kind of stuff that you can play with. And I won't go into details now because I think I'm already burning the clock a little. But if you do want advice on how to stage a scene so it looks really well and it's lit really well, just join on the forums or Discord or the Steam discussion board and just, ask a question, because there's a lot of information out there and all you're going to do is to unlock that information is to ask. And there'll be plenty of people in the community happy to help. There's already information out there in abundance, but if you don't want to go mining through millions of lines of text, then yeah, ask your questions in the right places. I am sure you'll get some great answers. So that's the competition. We're going to release that on Friday, so keep an eye out for that. I would have ended it there, but I've been working, and just hold my hand up right now, not much of a show and tell in terms of demos, when it's just me wittering on about news. But I would like to feed in some news every now and again into the broadcast. But you're right, I really couldn't resist the urge of demonstrating something that I actually have been working on. Well, I say we the team. And I want to show you just a little glimpse at it. So here's another scene, just a terrain I generated for this purpose. And as you saw from last week's broadcast, we was working on the animation system. There's going to be a booster pack which gives you lots more animations out to add to the animations you've already got, with like 150 new animations. But when I was going through the process of how do we make this booster pack really easy to use, I realised, well, you're going to have to make it easier out of the box in the core product. And then I realised, oh, wait a minute, we've already got 250 animations that come with GameGuru Max already. So this is what I came up with. And I think it's pretty cool. So let's just pick a character first. Don't worry about these thumbs. I've been playing around with making all the Aztecs run around with pistols. So we'll take Billy Joe. As you're familiar with this guy, he'll have a pistol, he'll run around and try and shoot you. But now, you can change his behaviour. Instead of melee or a zombie, you can set this one, play animation. Dink. And if you scroll down here, you can see you've got your... Normally this weapon section is only reserved for if, say, you're doing character attack, melee attack, or potentially even zombie attack. But we've added it to the play animations, and I'll show you that in a little while. But for now, this is the bit I really wanted to show you. See animation choice? If you select, I want to change the default animation of this character, and you click that, you get this. It's a new library type called Animation Library. I got Matt Blosser, Blonde One, commissioned him to create me a really cool crash test dummy in the GameGuru Max style. And I use this dummy, this mannequin if you will, to show you the actual animations and each of the animations that you can choose. So all I'm going to do is just pick adult male dancing. And with one click, so very visual way of selecting the animation, one click, boom. You've applied the animation straight to the character. It needed to be that simple. We didn't really want people sort of figuring out file names, where the folders live, all that kind of stuff. But sure, that is the simplest way. Obviously, it can get a lot deeper. And I just want to show you a little depth and just sort of hint at what the booster pack would be able to give you. So in addition to weapons, I might even change weapons to something like weapons or attachments or weapons or tools. But if you look down the list, you'll actually see, in addition to the Aztec dagger, spear and axe, which you'll have seen from previous broadcasts, there are 3 new things. Now these are not formatted yet. I'm going to find a way to actually get these nice descriptive names into the gun spec settings file. But now I've got hammer, handsaw and shovel. Now maybe some of you have already guessed what I'm going to do. I've already assigned this. Pretend it's a weapon, but it's not a weapon you would normally shoot out of. And now go back to the animation choices and go into booster. You'll find there's all these other things like idle, hands on hips, sad, sneezing. There's hundreds of animations, but the one I want to show you is we've got a formal bow. I like this one. And as we roll on, there'll be new behaviours that allow you to plug these different animations into something that you would expect in a game situation, like when a character walks up so a player walks up to the character may bow, then do some animation, then say something, then do a different animation, then when something else is triggered, a fourth animation, so on and so forth. But for now, we're going to keep it pretty simple, so everyone can get stuck in. Stacking shelves. Here we go. Shovel dig. Now, at the moment, you're only seeing the character that you've dropped down and the animation. We never actually attached the weapons and the attachments to characters during the editor. But now I keep looking at it. I've been working on it for a while now. I'm wondering whether when you select the weapon here, you really ought to see it in the just to get a feel for what you do here is immediately represented in the editor. Traditionally, a lot of this stuff is just created when you press test level, which is if I show you this. He's now got his shovel, and it's using his digging animation. And if you was doing a computer game where you wanted someone working in a field, just with a couple of clicks and selecting the correct implement, you've now got a character digging his own grave, perhaps. And also, as you saw with the animations, there's the skillet, so some sort of frying pan. There's a workbench, so tinkering around stuff, something a bit more. Here we go. Handsaw, so we'll need a saw. Hammering a wall, so we're going to need a hammer. So you've already seen the shovel. The idea is that we're going to add a couple of more what we'll call tools, where you can put these tools in the hands of characters. So when you do find an animation that you like, but the animation sort of depends on an implement, the character actually has that implement in the hands. Something that we didn't quite anticipate when we started doing the improvements. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. But yeah, I wanted to just demonstrate a little bit of what we're actually doing day in, day out, and you'll be able to get your hands on this. I would predict next week, end of next week. So not this Friday, next Friday, check it out. And hopefully you'll be able to have your characters do extremely silly dances. In fact, I'll end it there because I don't think I can top that. Okay, so that's the demo section. Let's roll nicely on to the Q&A. Okay, let's get back to the hub. I always like to sit on the hub because it's nice and colourful and shows lots of lovely things. But I have off screen a lovely little chat window. Now, are we lucky enough to have Zach in the house? Yes, we do. And the question's been posted. Not usually, I've not got me orange thing. I usually like to see the orange thing. I don't know how you make the orange thing. But that's okay. I can still read. The first question was probably asked before. Probably right at the start. That wasn't answered. And the question is, will terrain texture painting be getting improvements? As currently the centre of the brush has no transparency alpha, making it impossible to properly blend textures over each other. Now, I have had this question telegraphed to me because I think it was asked last week and I really got the answer completely wrong, or I didn't understand the nature of the question. Now I do. Let me show you exactly what it is and what my answer will be. I think this is a blank one. Okay. Terrain. And we have terrain modes. And one of those modes is you can paint. And I can get a brush and I can paint grass. The question is this. Look. Yes, we have blending from sand to grass, but there ain't much control over it. In fact, if I make the brush really small, look, that's the smallest amount of influence you can have. Now the reason for this, and I'm not going to make excuses, but there's a really good reason. This is an extremely efficient way of virtual texturing a massive procedural terrain. Doesn't look too bad, it's not sharp edges, but you can do a lot with it. And there are, you know, what would that be? Well, a lot. I think it's 31 materials. Now in the future we will be opening this up so you can customize those textures to whatever you want. But 31 materials for this sort of large scale swathing of textures, I think is pretty cool. And it's a very fast way of doing it. The answer that you're looking for, and we are planning it, is what's called an overlay. So consider all of this as your base, right? But on top of that, there's a secondary render layer that's quadded off, so it doesn't try and do it for every terrain. It only does it in the areas that you splat stuff down. And what you splat down is a secondary layer on top of that. And what does that mean? It means you can feather in this dark grass to this light sand to whatever degree of you want, which is the transparency / alpha term. So you could have it so it's like do a very, very faint piece of grass and just lightly dot it. You're reusing the textures, so you've got consistency with the base matte and then the overlay matte, but it's actually a secondary render layer. It renders over the top of this massively efficient terrain texturing system. And that way you'll have all the finesse you want. You could have the biomes generated like this, and let's say when you wanted to feather this sand into the grass slowly, then you'll actually have an overlay mode and you can do the necessary editing. Not something everyone will want, but I think it's becoming apparent now as people want to create that finesse in their level design that is needed. Right now, this hard line between the two textures and this little bit of filtering is not sufficient anymore. People want to have more granularity between these transitions. There are tricks, of course. You can find two textures that are close enough together that you can create some wider transitions between one texture through intermediate stages to the final one, but it's a bit of a cheat. What you really want is to arbitrarily take any texture and then alpha it in to the strength that you want, rather than the engine automatically forcing you to have basically on and off, which is currently what you've got with a little bit of visual eye candy around the edges. So that was one hell of an answer for the very first question. So sorry everybody else for not really getting any time left for your answers. But let's see if we can find, because the live chat has been scrolling all the while I've been wittering on. Such a degree that I've now completely lost my place. I'm going to have to panic. Yeah, I'm panicking now. No, I'm not really. Okay, found it again. Okay, thank you, Zach. Got 4 in a row from Zach, so that's how I found my mark. When will multiplayer for GameGuru Classic be looked at? Quite a few people are longing for playing again. Multiplayer, the Steam multiplayer system, it works for maps you've created with stock assets. It's when you use your own custom assets that aren't out of the box that things go horribly wrong with the multiplayer in GameGuru Classic. We will be looking at it, as I said. We're ramping up the amount of updates on the GameGuru Classic side. One of those is, of course, repairing the multiplayer system. I have a few ideas how that can be done, and not all of them what you might expect. But I am aware that one of the most fun aspects of GameGuru Classic multiplayer is bringing in your own custom art and creating very interesting levels to share and play with. So yeah, we are going to look at that. More looking at the multiplayer, not just getting it working again, but seeing what else we can do just to move it on a little bit for GameGuru Classic users who want to use it again. Is there a third question? When is the animation of Bootaback being released? I would say next week. Don't hold your breath on that, but I'm pretty sure all the code's pretty much done now. All the assets are lining up and looking nice. Most of the artwork's done, all the descriptions, etc. It's really just testing, making sure that it's right, making sure that it's easy enough that you can just use it out of the box. So let's say next week, and we'll have some news on that closer to the time. Right, here's a question from Anonzak. This is from Zero. Will the updates increase compatibility between Classic and Max? In one direction, yes, definitely. So something you make in Classic, we're going to drag it kicking and screaming into Max and represent it as fine an example as possible in Max. What will not be done is you've created something in Max and then you try and run it in Classic. That's just, it's possible, it's just so much work and it's in the wrong direction. You'd practically have to replace Classic with Max if you took that analogy to the nth degree. So we're actually actively moving anything you do in Classic to make it work in Max. But if you created all these wonderful, nice things in Max, there's little point in expecting it to look and act and everything the same in Classic. So it's a one-directional process. But we'll still continue to make stability improvements to Classic. But the goal is not to try and drag everything from Max and suddenly have it all work in Classic. Because Classic, let's face it, is a 7-year-old engine right now. And we do need to move on. The decades are rolling. Okay, Lee nearly lost his place again and he found it. So this is a question. Oh, my live chat just bumped. This is from Lucas. Question, can we add transparent PNGs to a level, as in signs, prehistoric paintings, blood splatters, etc.? If so, what's the maximum size permitted for these? Well, there's no real maximum size in a polygon. So you can create a polygon 1 million units across, it will fill the sky. And that's perfectly acceptable. It wouldn't take any memory at all. The size limit you want to be looking for is texture size. And the general rule of thumb with texture size is pixel to screen pixel ratio. So the idea is if you've got a player and you run right up to the polygon, you don't want that polygon to have stretchy texture. You want a lot of detail packed into the texture with your nose pressed against it. And so size your texture to make that as close to 1-to-1 pixel ratio as possible. So that's my advice in terms of how to control size. And I would not go above 4K for a texture. But sure, you can create texture, slap it onto a polygon, import it using the model importer. It automatically creates the object for you. You drop it into your level. Maybe there's a subject of a video tutorial in that. So do let me know if you'd like to see something. It's pretty straightforward, but then I would say that, wouldn't I? Maybe it's something that a lot of people would be interested in seeing. Okay, another question. This one, another one from Zach from before. Has the new weapon system been finished? And when can we bring in our own melee weapons? Will there be a tutorial to do so? Well, you saw the shovel, didn't you? And you saw a hint at the hammer and the handsaw. Well, actually, all of that is part of the new weapon system. Think about it. You've got a character with animations, but not holding anything. What it could be holding is melee, or it could be a projectile weapon, or it could be a tool or a utility. And so we're still working on it. We're improving the gun spec system, which is what it's called, in order to glue all of those worlds together. But it ain't finished yet. I am start building up a few templates, so when you do want to start creating your own weapon from scratch, then you're going to have some template files to start with. And the article, the guide, which actually steps you through it, are still to be written. But we're getting closer, and I think by the time we've released the Animation Booster Pack, a lot of the stuff will be stable, settled, and say, right, this is the new system that we're going to work with. Because if you think about it, if you got a character who's doing a shovel and you killed the character and he drops his shovel and you've ticked it as you can take this, the player's taking the shovel. We also need the player to hold that shovel in the correct way, in the correct orientation, and potentially attack with the shovel. So it's feeding into that it's all going on in the background. But by the end of it, yeah, we'll have enough information to start at least a basic guide on how to create, let's say, melee weapons to begin with, because that's easier. It's not that projectiles are significantly much harder, it's just you need to animate projectile weapons typically, whereas melee can just be a big blunt instrument that you just put in the hand and whack things over the head with. So it's probably the first weapon guide will be melee weapons guide. Okay, next question is another one from the past. Can we use Photoshop for the competition as well? Absolutely not. No cheating. And I'll know, because I pretty much know the capabilities of our graphics engine. It has to be, the rules will be posted in 2 days' time, but it has to be rendered in GameGuru Max. You grab the screen, it's 1920 by 1080p. There's no wiggle room. You can't post-edit your stuff. I know you'd want to, and certainly commercial games do that a lot when they want to impress people. I'm interested in what GameGuru Max can produce, all by itself with clever use of placing lights and scenery items and characters and stuff. That's kind of what I'm fishing for here. So maybe there'll be a future competition where you just go crazy nuts and it's only for like top artists, but this one is for everyone. So if you can drop down a few things and take a screenshot, then you've got all you need to enter this competition. Okay, looking for the next question, which I think comes from Maverick 1981. Is texture streaming being considered for future development? The procedural terrain system does a form of terrain streaming already. It's not really streaming as in it's streaming it from the disk, but it is streaming from source and then constructing a series of caches, so you get the virtual texturing on the terrain in such a way that you get lots of textures, lots of terrain, without necessarily consuming a lot of memory or hitting you with a lot of performance drain. It has been mentioned on Discord, and absolutely right, the critique is, well done on the terrain, guys, but what about literally everything else, like objects, characters? Those textures are still loaded in right at the start and carried through the entire game in memory. Whereas texture streaming gives the possibility of just keeping them completely off memory until you get near the thing, and then you only need to stream in the texture resolution that's needed. You get a large skyscraper in the background, you don't need the high resolution version of that wall. You only need the sort of the low bitmap level, and you can stream that in super lickety quick. So that's a system we are looking at. It's quite a lot of work. Texture streaming for objects. But we do think that it will drastically reduce a memory footprint, and thanks to multi-core and fast SSD drives, there shouldn't really be any performance hit, and it'll work in many ways like the terrain system, allowing you to create a lot of textures in your level without necessarily storing them all at the same time. So we do have an eye on that, and in fact one of the reasons we opted to do the virtual texturing on terrain is we anticipated we kind of want to do the same with objects as well. So don't hold your breath, because it's a lot of work, that one, but it's definitely something that we do want to do. Okay, looking for the next question, and it's another past question. Will the improvements to the animation control also benefit models that we import? Yeah, to some degree. The model importer is more what we call an advanced feature. So you can still create animation sets. They're called animation sets. If you've just got an animation file with just one animation in it, it's just an animation file. If there's a file with like 5 animations built into that one file, it's an animation set. And the animation sets is what things like the soldiers use, and the zombies, and the melee, where they need to access a lot of different animations in order to perform their logic. And in the model importer, you can create and export those animation sets. It's not done pretty whizzy with little graphic-y thumbnails that all animate and stuff. It is for the advanced user. But yes, you can create your own animation sets via the model importer. And in fact, we use it ourselves to create animation sets. Maybe in the future we could come up with some new thing called an animation editor, but I think that might be straying a little too outside of the core user for GameGuru Max and more into the sort of the artisty 3D modelly area. I think providing we provide enough import support and formats and applying to our rig and giving you some organisational control and the ability to save it out easily and use them, I think that should be where we draw the line. But if you disagree, do let me know. Okay, looking for the next question. There's a lot of questions, so I'm having to kind of reread questions to sort of skip past the one I've just answered to the new one. This is another one from the past. When will the importer be fixed to allow importing rigged characters using FBX, GLB? Currently only .x works for importing rigged characters. Yeah, the X file support with the current model importer sits on top of a technology called ASIMP, or Asset Importer, and it is not the best X file importer actually. There is something you can do. Let me just, yeah, it would be in builds. This is my own personal build, but you'll see it here, and it is in your version. Guru-converter.exe. Put any X file in your files area or anywhere inside it and run this. It will convert all the X files to .dbo. Why is that important? Why should I do that? Because it's using our X file importer that we have perfected over 10 years, and it does everything that GameGuru Max would require in terms of getting data from an X file and having it ready in our proprietary format, which is .dbo. So I would do that for converting X. But you can already get an FBX that's rigged with an alien animation and import it through the model importer and give it a name and change the textures if you want, and then create an object, save it out, and drop it into your level, and it will animate and it will have its rig. Now the question is, can we get an alien rig and then map it onto our rig? That's beyond the scope. That sort of requires a certain amount of 3D artist skill set in order to map two alien rigs. So an animation from one rig can work perfectly in another. And from personal experience, it never perfectly works. That's why the different rigs, they're rigged for a different expectation of vertex weights. The animator was bending an elbow a little bit too far in one. That looks fine in one, but not in the other. And you'll find out when you start doing it yourself, mapping rigs and getting animations from here, there, and everywhere. Which is why in GameGuru Max, we felt it was important that we came up with a rig that works across all our characters, and then we provided all the animations you need, all of the animations compatible with that rig. But if you've got your own rig and your own set of animations, you should be able to, and I wouldn't use FBX, I would lean you towards the GLTF format, because it's a little bit more grown up. And if you've got a rig that's in your GLTF model and animations that match that rig, you can just import them all in using the model importer. If they don't, it's a bug, and it should be posted on the issues board as a bug, and we'll get to that and we'll fix it. But we're going to support, obviously, DBO, because that's our own proprietary format, and then FBX and GLTF. And so if you find rigs and compatible animations, should be no reason why you have to use our character rigs. You can use your own rigs if you create your own rigs and your own animations. They should all come through the model importer fine. There should be no reason why you can't do that. If there is a reason, it's very likely a bug. But we are definitely supporting it right now. Okay, next question. I don't think that's a question. Here's the question from Joe. Is there a way of selecting several animations, like digging the field, and then when you're arranged, then change to a different animation, zombie or soldier attack? I can actually demonstrate that one. Great question. And that's where I said we're going to have, let's just find Billy Joe. So we've got familiarity and the start marker, because I don't know where I am now. So we go to this guy. Remember that behavior I showed you before? Play animation. Well, if you look at the details, action play, action loop, idle play, idle loop. Now this animation picker, they're all one-off animations, as you can see. I just go to idles, you know, very excited. But if you scroll down, look at this one, sets. Sets are actually combinations of many animations all inside one file. So if I just pick, just for the laugh of it, zombie males default animations, and now if you go to this drop down, you'll see all of the animations that are built into that animation set. So you can actually pick two different animation sets. Like when you're really close, have him looking around. So I just pick both of these, and if it's far away, have the thing feeding like that. So now if I run this, when I'm far away, feeding. When I get close, it's the idle looking around. And that's with the play animation behavior. But as I mentioned before, I don't think this play animations is certainly not a one-size-fits-all solution. I think there's going to be an evolution of behaviors and logic that goes from something like this, which I think is about as simple as you can get, to something that sort of describes the kind of tropes you'd want your different game characters to have, and being able to specify animation sets and then dropping down and pick the animations from that set that you want for that particular character to perform. Then I think that ticks all the boxes without you having to go in and learn rigging, animation and scripting and all the rest of it. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a glimpse, but I do expect more behaviors with more options on how the character animates in different situations. Okay, questions. There's a lot of questions this week, I guess. I don't know why. Why is there so many more questions this week? Need to scroll down, scroll some more.
Maybe there's so many questions because I lost my place and I'm reading all the old questions again. Here we go. This is a question. This is not a question. This is a question, is it? Yes. This is from Curiosity UK. What about animations like military exercises, push-ups, sit-ups? We don't have those. What do we have? We got activities. So cooking, cleaning. That's what? Spin cake? Spin dance. I think there is a couple of stuff like melee. There's a left jab. We got pistol whip, shoulder shove, spin kick. Oh, that's spin kick one. But yeah, push-ups, sit-ups. No, the closest we've got is standing up and sitting down in quick succession. But I think this is what we're going to ask once the booster pack's released. I think a great set of questions we'll ask is, what else would you like to see? What else do you think is missing from the booster pack? And as the booster pack is not created by TDC, it's created entirely by a third-party artist, and that third-party artist wants to encourage more sales of that particular booster pack, I am absolutely positive that requested, and it's useful, and it's not just something that's already existing in the pack, then yeah, sit-ups, push-ups, anything that is going to contribute to the games that you're trying to create. Because even though 150 animations sounds like a lot, I imagine there's room for a lot more before we're done adding animations to GameGuru Max. Okay, next question is sitting underneath, which is from AZ Graphics. Is there any plans to add cloth simulation in small scale, like flags and torn curtains? Not in the short term. What I can say is that the Wicked engine on which GameGuru Max sits fully supports not just cloth dynamics, but handles it in very efficient and performant ways. And you are absolutely right, you do want to use cloth everywhere. You want to be very selective, like, remember the shantytown buildings? And there's like this cloth over the door, you'd expect to push through it. Well, it's solid right now, so you have to kind of duck underneath to get in. It's like made out of sheet metal, where you would expect that to be cloth. And it's small scale as well, so I think as you get further away from the cloth, it instantly transitions to something static and then freezes. And then when you get closer, it switches in some nice cloth physics so you can push through. And it's come a long way since the early days of cloth physics. So it is supported. It's supported both in Bullet and in the Wicked engine. We just haven't implemented it into Max because, and you've probably heard this in previous broadcasts, quite a lot to do and a lot of high priority items that we get out of the way before we get to the lower end stuff. But it's certainly accessible. Technology is in our hands. We just need to switch it on at the right time when the right priority arrives for it. Okay, looking for two question marks here from Nightfall X. Can we attach Max rigs to outside models like Mixamo? We've looked at Mixamo. I think Mixamo is a great resource if we can somehow get Mixamo animations onto our rig. Early tests, though, haven't been wholly successful, but I'm not giving up on that one. Yes, we can provide lots of animations, and we've tested them for you, so they just work out the box. But there's a order of magnitude more animations out there that you can get your hands on. Motion capture, don't talk to me about motion capture. Probably thousands of motion capture clips out there that, with the right conversion, and again, this is what's called rig mapping, you should be able to get all them onto our rig. But we're still in the experimental stage of that. Can't promise anything, but it's one of the ambitions that wouldn't it be great if ... So I'd say watch this space for that one. Okay, next question, Mark, comes a couple of lines down, which is from Nomad Soul. Why is SSAO not working with procedurally generated trees and foliage? SSAO, for those who don't know, screen space ambient occlusion, which is sort of what creates all the lovely dark shadows. I come out of there, get rid of this kickboxing guy, drop in a building, like that. Really just to demonstrate what it is. You see that, this darkening here? There, along that floor and the wall. Screen space ambient occlusion. The technique we're using is MSAO, which is slightly much improved over the early SSAO. So it works great for these creases. I suppose the question is, if we go to this cactus, why is it not working there? As you can see, it's pretty washed out. If those creases, you know, that there, that should produce quite a lot of SSAO. The reason I think, now I don't know this, I'll tell you why, because I really did all the object placement stuff, but it was another coder within the team who created what we call our tree instancing system. That allows this tree, or rather this cactus, to be rendered thousands of the times across a massive terrain. It could be that the shader that's been responsible for rendering this cactus is a different shader that renders this building. In fact, it's highly likely. And perhaps one thing that was done is we sacrificed the SSAO mechanic so we can render these trees faster. So if you've got a regular tree, I don't know whether we've still got trees in the regular library, tree collection. No, we've removed them all from there. But there's other ways to get at lovely vegetation. If we go to desert, yeah, is this a tree? It's a thing, oh, isn't it? And we look at this one. Yeah, you can see the SSAO going on in that one. So there you go, see that darkening there and then lighter on the edges. So I think if you wanted SSAO right now, get your tree in as a regular object, and then it will share the more expensive shader with what you see here with SSAO. If you said, this is unacceptable, Lee, we want SSAO for literally everything, and that request actually causes the whole engine to slow down, because now 10,000 trees are having to do more, then I would question the sanity of that. Maybe a tick box, you know, on the, here we go, trees. We've already got a couple of options here. Maybe the tick box says, you know, use the standard shader for all trees and watch your frame rate crash. but yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's because it's two different shaders that hit at slightly different points in the pipeline when the SSAO needs certain information like depth information, and if this isn't rendering to depth for whatever reason, that explains why SSAO is not apparent. But that just gives you a bit of technical background excuse. It's a question is, how badly do you want SSAO on trees, and do you not mind if performance drops as a result? It's always about compromise when you're developing games technology. Till we get to the point where computers are so fast they can recreate reality, we're always going to be resorting to hacks to fake reality as convincingly as possible. Okay, question underneath that one is Z asks, will it be translation in the game? Question mark. I suppose the question is in the game, as in you want to make a game and then put sort of non-English text and fonts in there. I think we've actually made a start on that, but at the moment it's English only. And it's not super high priority on our list, while we've still got bugs to fix and core features to add in. But I think once all that's done and we're beyond version 1, when we're out of early access, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to do a translation kit, not only for the game itself but also for the editor. It just makes good business sense. If we can get GameGuru Max translated into 10 languages, and those 10 languages are actually supported in-game, so the games you save out are in those 10 languages as well, makes perfect sense. But it's not high enough in the priority list as to other things that we need to do, the other things that we've promised, and we want to do those things first. So I'm just checking out the clock. Oh, wowza. You know, when I actually planned out my little script for broadcast 106, I thought I didn't have a lot of meat on the bones and I'd have to stretch it out a little bit. Boy, was I wrong. This is probably going to be in the top 10 of longest broadcasts. But I'm not just going to leave. I'm going to find 2 more questions from someone who's not asked a question before. I'm going to answer those and then I'll leave. So the Zorgo33 hasn't asked a question before, and his question is, when an improved structure tool be in development, and how will it be done? Will it be pretty much same but fixed, or something completely different? If it's in the plans at all? Question. A structure tool is in development, actually, and I'm not going to say anything else because it's really cool and I want to keep my powder dry until I got something wow to show you. But yeah, we are working on something that makes structures, and I'll reveal that in the near future. You won't have to wait too long, but I want to make sure it's right before I start talking about it. It's early-ish sort of days. It's not done a lot of iteration want to make sure that everyone in the internal team loves it before I start talking about it to everybody else. So yeah, that's an affirmative for that particular question, and I'll let you know more when I know more. Okay, and the final question. Duke229 says congrats on 60 views. Yeah, that's probably the highest views that we get in these broadcasts. So thank you very much for those who attend today's. Last question is from Gaming World. Where can I get FPS Creator X10? I don't know. I know you get FPS Creator. We actually have a GitHub repository where you can not only get the source code and compile it, I think we actually included a binary and a lot of the model packs. So you can download it, install all the model packs and make games in FPS Creator. X10 was a weird one because we did it in cooperation with a couple of manufacturers for Windows Vista. Remember that one? The most shortest lived operating system in the world. And so when Vista went, X10 sort of disappeared as well. Didn't last very long, that one. It was an exciting journey. We did a lot of playing around with the latest, greatest DirectX technologies, and it's some fun adding that into a product. It just got superseded really quickly with the next thing that came along, and I can't remember what that is. My brain's a bit cheesed these days. But if you really want FPS Creator X10, Google it. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I doubt I've got it on my hard drive at the moment. But yeah, there's a lot of need for checking out all of our old legacy products. I don't think it'd be that much hard work to create a page on the TGC website where you can just browse our history, and then there's a little link which lets you download all the products that we've since made free. And I'm pretty sure FPS Creator X10 is free. In fact, I've just glanced to my left. I do actually have, when we used to do box product back in the physical days, I always kept one of the physical products that we manufactured, and I still have FPS Creator X10, but there's only one copy of it and it's mine, and it's still in its shrink wrap. so good luck Googling it and finding it somewhere out there on the interwebs. So that's it for this week's broadcast. Sorry for those who wanted to get out of the room half an hour ago. I do like to talk, as many of you know. I'll be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. BST. Check out the news on Friday for the competition, and also next Friday when I release another cool update for GameGuru Max with lots of pretty buttons and toys for you to play with, and announcements in the realms of booster packs, which I hope you'll find useful in the weeks and months to come. So until next week, thanks very much for your kind attention, and I'll speak to you all next week. So until then, goodbye.